Hello, my name is Christopher Renstrom, and I'm your weekly horoscope columnist here on Astrology Hub. And before I get to this week's horoscope, I wanted to share with you a very special announcement. Here at Astrology Hub, we are celebrating, wow. Here at Astrology Hub, we are celebrating over 3 million downloads of the Astrology Hub podcast. That's fantastic. And we'd love to include you in the celebration. Enter for a chance to win one of the 3 prizes by submitting a review of your favorite podcast via iTunes, Spotify, or any other major podcast player. Let us know your favorite thing about the podcast, how it has helped improve your life and enhanced your understanding of astrology. You'll receive bonus points if you're an Inner Circle member and mention your IC experience in your review. Now, this is what you guys could win. The top prize is a free mastery class from the Academy. That's $47 value. The second prize is 1 free month of the Inner Circle. That's a $37 value. And the third place prize is 1 free astrological report. Now, while Facebook and YouTube comments are appreciated, please submit your review via your podcast app to be considered for this contest. Please be sure to leave your name so we can find you in the system. Okay, wow, that sounds kind of exciting. I wonder if I can submit a review for a podcast. All right, so let's get to this week's horoscope. This week, I wanted to talk to you about the approaching Sun-Pluto sextile on March 18th. Now, this is a really exciting season for me personally, because I like to garden. It's a passion of mine. Now, I'm not like some sort of excellent gardener who puts together the compost and lays down the little stakes and the borders and prunes and whatever. I'm kind of like I need to go out and clear my head kind of gardener. Whenever I'm between doing horoscopes or writing horoscopes or reading horoscopes or something, it's nice to get on out into the garden and just sort of knock around a bit and to see what's growing and see what's not growing or didn't do as well as last year. But the reason that I'm bringing this up as an example for Sun-Pluto sextile is Pluto really is a planet that's connected to the Earth, mostly because it's named after the Roman god of the underworld. Now, at first, being named after the Roman god of the underworld, that has a little bit of a chilling reputation because obviously Pluto ruled over corpses and everything that was buried under the ground. So that was a little bit uneasy. But Pluto also ruled over things that were buried underground like gold and silver and precious metals and oil. So the idea of wealth, sometimes we understand it as an inner wealth, and sometimes we understand it as actual wealth. Wealth comes from the idea of Pluto. In fact, plutocracy, which means the moneyed class, comes from the word Pluto or Pluton, which meant wealth. But the other sort of thing that connects to something that's buried under the earth are seeds and roots. And we've talked a bit about seeds and roots on previous podcasts here on Astrology Hub. But there's something that I've noticed about seeds that, let's see if I can make this idea clear. Seeds, you can plant a seed, right? We even talk about it metaphorically. I planted the seed of this idea in someone's head, or I came up with the seed of this project or concept. It's the idea of seed or sowing an origin, planting an origin, or planting something which will go on to hopefully flourish and thrive. But not all seeds, when they're planted, show up when you expect them to, which is something you'll notice if you have a garden. Okay, you can, have thrown out these wonderful seeds and sprinkled Miracle-Gro on them and all sorts of things, and maybe half of them come up, or maybe a third. Okay, you can see that my career as a gardener isn't so great. But anyway, the fun thing is to see what comes up. And when it comes up, it's like Christmas again, you know. It's all kinds of delightful as you see, you know, life begin to sort of like sprout up through the soil and begin to grow. And then you want to do things like protect it and nurture it and all these sorts of things. But this other idea of seeds, or rather Plutonian time, which is what I really sort of want to talk to you about today. Seeds can lay in the earth for a season. They can lay in the earth for a year. They can lay in the earth for decades. They can lay in the earth for even centuries. Now, the ones that have been laying in the earth for centuries, I'm not sure if they're really going to go and sprout on their own, although there have been laboratories in Israel where they've excavated ancient seeds and actually made them sprout again. So that is not totally out of the question. But in Pluto time, you know, a seed that is laid buried in the earth, it's not responding to clock time, you know, which is what we expect in our society and the way that we live our day-to-day lives. We live very much associated to clock time, or maybe I should say Android or iPhone phone time, or, you know, whatever social media time sort of, you know, says do this or prompts that, or something along those lines. But a seed can lay buried for a very long time, and then all of a sudden it begins to sprout. And this is something that, you know, being a gardener can be very exciting when, you know, I'll see this plant growing, you know, this flower growing, and it's kind of like, I think I planted you like 5 years ago or 6 years ago, and here you are, or I never thought you were going to come back, and here you are, you've come back. So there's really a wonderful delight at seeing, you know, a seed finally emerge and start to grow. This seed, this carrying around of seeds within, and we've talked about seed self on previous podcasts with Pluto. This thing that you're carrying inside, and this is what Pluto talks about. Pluto talks about things that are inherent in us, okay? Pluto, named after the god of the underworld, talks about things that we're carrying inside of us. So Pluto is not, for instance, an aspirational planet. You know, it's not a planet that says, oh, I want to be this one day, and I'm going to do whatever I can to make myself to be this one day, okay? Pluto doesn't do that. Pluto isn't particularly a higher purpose oriented planet. Pluto isn't going to say, you know, in your chart, I'm searching for a high purpose, what my life is supposed to be about. If only I could connect to that, I would feel like a fulfilled person. No, that's not Pluto's realm. That's not what Pluto's in charge of. Pluto's in charge of the things that you carry around inside of yourself, the things that you were born with, the things that are inherent to you. Now, to make a further distinction, Pluto is not going to be memory. Pluto is not going to be reverie. Pluto is not going to be nostalgia. That's ruled by another and very different planet in astrology. Now, Pluto rules over the things that you carry inside of yourself. It rules over your past, and some astrologers will make the case that it rules over your past life. But what I'm going to talk to you about with this Pluto Sun sextile, I'm going to talk to you about that talent that you have. I'm going to talk to you about that flair that you have really quite naturally, that aptitude, that skill, even that interest. It's something that you do that you're actually pretty good at, and that when you do this, you enjoy doing it. At the same time, this might not have been something that you pursued in your life. In other words, you might have said, oh, I have a flair for drawing pictures or something like that. And you did that when you were a kid, but you didn't really pursue that in your life. Or let's say you were a really talented athlete, you know, at a younger point in your life, and you were really, really quite good at it. And let's say that's not something that you pursued, maybe because there was an injury or you grew out of it, or the circumstances were such that you weren't able to follow this. You weren't able to cultivate this flower that was beginning, and maybe it passed. Pluto retains those seeds. Anything that seeds, it flowers and it gives new seeds, and those seeds fall down into the earth again. And then they come back later on. In fact, reincarnation, you'll see reincarnation is something that shows up in agricultural societies because it was based on a flower going to seed, and winter, everything dying, and then in the spring, seeds coming back as new flowers. So it was this idea of like coming back to life again. So those notions of reincarnation are actually pretty much, you see them in all agricultural societies. But here, what you might be experiencing this week is all of a sudden, maybe you start drawing again. Not because you're making yourself draw again or whatever, but maybe you start like doodling again. Maybe you take out the tracksuit and you're ready to run, and you run a few paces and you're like, oh, I'm so out of shape, or something like that. Or maybe you pick up singing again. It's going to be something that is inherent to you, something that is kind of private to you, and something that meant a lot to you earlier in your life, or it might have meant a lot to a relative of yours, maybe a parent or an aunt or a great uncle earlier in their lives. There can be something somewhat ancestral about this type of thing, and it's just going to begin as maybe a fluky thing, by chance. And you may be like, oh, I used to be good at that, or that's something that I used to do, or, great uncle Larry used to do this. I didn't know about that. And so what's kind of happening, either, and it could be physical. I mean, you might be up in your attic and going through old papers or journals, or you might come upon something. I mean, excavation, the uncovering of things that are hidden and of value are very Plutonian, okay? And the value might be monetary value, or the values may simply be a personal value. But this idea of recovering, this idea of excavating, this idea of rediscovering something, a talent, a penchant, a skill, an interest, flair, something that meant a lot to you, or maybe something that meant a lot to a member of your family who had come before. This is going to sort of like poke up through the soil like a little sprouting plant. Okay, it's just going to sort of like poke up through the soil. It's not going to be robust. It's not going to be something that you become absorbed with and it's going to change your life. It's just a little thing that pokes up in the soil, a little thing that's responding to the sun moving towards the spring equinox, at the end of the week. But it's yours. Okay, it's yours, and it's something that's really, really special to you. Now, this might, excavations, this might be something which it's broken shards, it's just the broken shards of ancient pottery or something, or you might excavate or rediscover an entire King Tut's tomb that's completely intact. Okay, so this may be a physical thing that's excavated or retrieved, or it may be metaphorical. Okay, but it's something that's going to have a great deal of meaning to you, and there's going to be this feeling, because Pluto rules over inheritance. Okay, there's going to be this feeling of coming into something that you felt was always meant for you. Okay, so again, I mean, this happened in New England recently. Maybe you've got some Rembrandt sketch that's tucked away in the attic somewhere, and that caused a big hullabaloo in the art world. Or maybe it's just coming across an old journal, and maybe coming across a letter you wrote to yourself when you were 12, or poetry or a short story, saying to yourself, you know what, I was kind of good at that. Okay, and it's just this thing that serves as a reminder. It's just this thing that sort of restores. It may actually be even more. It might have been something that you weren't able to pursue or do at an earlier time in your life. Maybe you were too young at the age of 13, or circumstances were against you at the age of 23, and then all of a sudden at this time in your life that you're rediscovering it, it fits. You are able to pursue it. You are able to nurture or to develop or to do something with it. All right. And we learn so many things from things that are excavated. Think of those tremendous mosaics, from Roman terraces that are excavated, or fossils that are excavated that describe a world that's long lost and gone, ruins that lie under city streets in Mexico. So this is all the realm of Pluto, and this is all something that is there. Again, it's not something that you have to go on an archaeological dig and put on a hat and sunscreen and brush away and say, like, this is the vertebrae of an ancient pterodactyl. No, it's nothing like that. It's a gentle thing, and it's a lovely thing, and it's a precious thing that's going to mean a lot to you. And you're going to feel as if you're finally coming into something that was meant to be yours, or you're going to feel like a piece of the puzzle of your life is clicking into place. Or you're going to perhaps even feel like the time that you're finding this is the right time. Maybe you can't do what you did before athletically, but that doesn't mean that you can't coach someone else or teach someone else how to do this. Okay, so it's this lovely sort of restoration of a part of yourself that you really didn't know was missing, but you're certainly very glad to have found and to put back where it belongs. This week with the Sun sextiling Pluto, and it culminates when Mercury sextiles Pluto on March 26th. Science, astrology, is not a religion. What astrology is a calendar on the planet, whether it was Middle Eastern, Chinese, Indian, or Mesoamerican, created some form of astrology. It was in order to tell time. The Cosmic Calendar with me, Christopher Renstrom, is now open at astrologyhub.com/cosmic calendar. In the first chapter of the course, you will learn all about the history of astrology as a calendar in civilizations across the globe. In the second chapter, we'll cover the signs and seasons and why it's so important to know where the sun is in your birth chart. And in the third and final chapter, you will learn how to turn your birth chart into a personal calendar. For each chapter, there will be a live Q&A where you will have the opportunity to ask me your questions. And don't worry if you can't make it to the live sessions. You'll have access to the recordings within 24 hours. Go to astrologyhub.com/cosmic calendar. And Inner Circle members, be sure to check your membership portal for your own discount code. I am so looking forward to seeing all of you in class.